Happy Friday, everyone. It is officially 1 week away from the Spiritforged release in the US, with pre rift events starting on February 6th, especially at my local game store. I cannot wait. And so, for that reason, I wanted to take everyone through the best way to get the most out of your pre rift event. So, for anyone who isn't familiar with sealed events, and I haven't been to a in-person sealed event ever either, Riot has uploaded all of their sealed rules on their website, which is where you can find everything about normal rules as well. And they've made some pretty big updates, including the one that you can now run English and Chinese cards in any tournament deck, which is a huge deal. That means at Vegas, at Bologna, you're going to have a lot of Chinese decks because people won't have access to product. So it's something to keep in mind. Check this out. Dave Guskin, he tweets all about Riftbound all the time. He kind of gave a synopsis of the changes that were made, so I absolutely recommend you checking that out. But in today's video, since we're just talking about the pre-rift event, let's take a look at everything on the limited format or sealed product. And so the sealed format is where each player starts with 6 unopened Riftbound booster packs to open and use to construct their deck. The interesting thing about the pre-rift events is that one of those packs is actually a mini pre-constructed deck. So think the Jinx, Victor, or Lee Sin decks for Origins, but by mini, it doesn't have as many cards, and the cards honestly aren't as rare. So you're going to have a 15 card mini pre-constructed deck that has 1 battlefield, 1 legend, 1 chosen champion, instead of 3 battlefields, multiple chosen champions, etc. One of the big changes that was released for this format, especially for Spiritforged, is main decks must contain at least 25 cards, but they can be more. In the past, you were limited to 25 cards. You'll see later in this video when we start actually simulating some of these, it's sometimes hard to get to 25 cards, but in the instance that you have a lot of cards you want to include, now you can include more. And it's interesting to note too that every other card you open is part of your side deck. So you do not have an 8-card side deck, you have an infinite card side deck based on what you pull. A few other rules to keep in mind are you can only have 3 domains. So you have to have 2 domains of your champion legend plus 1 more, or 3 random domains if you choose not to use a champion legend. And a sealed deck may have any champion unit that's included. It doesn't have to be the one that starts with your pre-constructed mini deck. It also can contain any signature spell. And so as long as you have the right runes, you can do that. For instance, if you're running Fury, Body, and Order, you could use a signature spell for Fury and Order, or you could use a signature spell for Body and Order, and you could even include both as long as you have the right rune counts and colors in your deck. So what I'll say too is it's interesting that you can actually have a legal deck with no chosen champion or chosen legend or both. It's not advised to have neither, but if you're opting out of one, you at the beginning of your game can draw a card at the start of that turn. So think of it as if you're giving up on having a card always available in your champion zone, you just have an extra card at the beginning of the game. And depending on what you pull, this might make sense. But here it says if both are missing, you still only draw 1 card, so you should definitely have at least 1. The last thing I'll add here is normal restrictions on quantities do not apply. So if you have 10 Pouty Poros, you can play 10 Pouty Poros. If you have 10 Yones, I don't know why you want to, you could play 10 Yones. So a lot of the restrictions are gone. It really just comes down to 3 domains with what you pull. So that being said, let's look at some of the precons. I won't go through all of them, but shout out to the folks on Reddit who have actually compiled all this information. In the Ezreal deck, you start in the bottom right with the Ezreal Prodigal Explorer, where if you choose an enemy unit with a spell or ability twice in a turn, you can tap them to draw a card. And then you also get the less exciting Ezreal, right? The purple Ezreal is the one that lets you draw a bunch of cards, repeat things for free. It's what enables the Miracle decks. This Ezreal is more interesting in a way that it's damage based, and you can move them back to your base at any time, kind of like Ezreal plays in League of Legends. And then the rest of the deck is pretty standard. You've got your Plundering Poro, which is a really good 2-drop, Wages of Pain, which is some removal, Frigid Touch, which is a repeatable spell, just like Called Shot, which help you cycle your deck, and then a few other cards that you don't really care about. Looking at Aurelia, pretty similar. It doesn't have the good Aurelia that's being run in the meta decks to date, but it does have the Aurelia Legend. You have some things like Not So Fast, Stellacorn, and Lonely Poro, which are almost always auto-includes. Feral Strength likely you'll include as well. But things like Ribbon Dancer, when you move from a battlefield, give another unit +1, feel pretty weak. It's really just a 3 for 3. And then Royal Entourage, a 3 for 4 that you could ready or exhaust a legend. A little bit situational. So that being said, let's say you actually want to get some repetitions in. You know you're a week out from your pre-rift event. You want to get ready. A lot of these will have booster boxes as prizing support. So not only do you get to open your packs, but there's also a lot more packs on the line. Well, Rifty.app, I think, is a great solution. I think it's really incredible that they made this. And if you go to goodies on Rifty.app and you go to simulator, they've actually built quite a few simulators. The one we're looking for is just the pre-rift Spiritforged simulator. And when you click on this, it automatically opens up your mini precon and 5 decks at random. And if at any point you don't like what you drew, you want to try again, you're like, hey, this isn't great, boom, you click refresh and you have a whole new set of opened cards and packs. And what you can do is at any point add them to your deck. And it tells you, hey, you need at least 25 cards. You need 12 runes and 3 battlefields. So let's do this one. I already see when I scroll down, I got Defiant Dance, which is an incredible card. It's an auto include, and that is green and purple. So I know I have to run green and purple to be able to afford that. So now I'll just add one other color. I see I've got Ezreal and Lucian as my only 2 legends, which is pretty low. And so it means I either drew an Ezreal mini precon or a Lucian mini precon. So as I scroll up, I see Ezreal here. I'm assuming I won't see a Lucian. I don't. Okay, so we pulled the Ezreal precon. Let's build a deck. So knowing we got Ezreal and knowing we got Defiant Dance is an auto-include. Give a unit -2 this turn and another +2. It's a reaction spell. It's just a great combat trick. It's 4 stupefies in 1 at the cost of 1 power. So we'll definitely play Defiant Dance, purple and green. So let's go purple first. Switcheroo also is a great combat trick. Swap the mites of 2 units to the same battlefield. That's an auto-include. Boots of Swiftness gives ganking and +2. It's just a great way to conquer some points. I'm going to pull that into my deck. Windsinger is a gust that you can hide. I'll pull that in. And then Treasure Hunter, gold gear, and 2 drops. You absolutely need 2 drops. So this is an incredible pack opening. Very few of mine, I feel like this, certain about my cards. I'll add Called Shot because that's just always card draw. And I'll pause on purple for now. Likely we'll have to revisit it. Knowing that we ran that Aurelia signature spell, green will also be in my deck. And so we've got 2 Thwonks. I'll go with 1 for now. I don't want to overcommit. Guardian Angel, great for keeping things alive. We'll absolutely keep that. Feral Strength is a good way to keep some units alive. And now what I'm thinking is, okay, if we're going green, purple, and blue, I'm missing some 2 drops. We're always going to include Plundering Poro in blue. We got 3 Breakneck Mechs, which is crazy if I'm going a mech build, but I'm not. Card Sharp's a great card for gold gear, so I'll take that. Wages of Pain are some removal. I'm going to include Ezreal for now, and I'll also go back down and include this Ezreal. And we're rocking 15 out of 25 cards. So now's where it gets hard, because you have to think, okay, I don't have my entire deck, and I don't just want to throw in garbage, but now I have to be a little bit interested in what's coming next. So Aphelios lets me ready some runes, channel rune exhausted, buff a friendly unit, but it's only when you attach an equipment. Not great. Navori has deflect for 4, and then Guardian has get a unit back. I'll choose Guardian just for kind of some top end strength. I'm fine with that. Killing a gear for 3 and a power for 2 body is really, really weak. Doran's Shield is potentially okay, so I'm going to ignore that for now. I'll add another Frigid Tusk as like a combat trick, something I'd like to see. And then we'll go back down to purple. When you play a card from face down, play a gold. So this is not too shabby, honestly, with my hidden cards. But man, we're starting to run out of some steam. So if I look at my curve, I'm actually pretty spell heavy. I'm pretty low on units, which is a little scary. And I'm also significantly 2-drop oriented with no 5, no 4. So what that means is I need a heavier unit. I'll pull in Beast Below. When you play me, return another friendly unit, enemy unit. If you don't have any friendly units on board, you just get to essentially rebuke an enemy unit. And so it's a 5 cost, 8 might, if you think about that, because rebuke is 2 and 2 power. So I'll go ahead and throw that in as kind of like a heavier end unit. And then now I want to look for something that's 4 in the blue, which I don't have. So in this case, it might make sense to pull in Aphelios as kind of a heavier end unit. We can pull in another Thwonk as a combat trick. Navori Scout as a heavier end unit. And we're looking at 21 cards. I still need 4 more. I don't like including Breakneck because it only affects my mechs, and I have, at the current moment, no mechs in my deck. So what I'll do... And this is part of what building limited decks is like, and sealed decks, is you might just not draw what you need. And I don't really have heavy end units anywhere. I've got one red one, but then I'd have to rebuild my entire deck. I've got Yone and Fey Dragon in orange, but that's not super great either. And so I think this deck will have to over-index on combat tricks and spells. And since we don't have a ton of units, it's probably gear as well. So I'll throw in Doran's Ring for kind of the discard one, draw one, hopefully cycle through my deck a little bit more. I'm already pretty good on gold, so I'm not going to over-index on World Atlas. I'll take in Rocket Barrage as kind of like a removal, and then I'll do Frostcoat Cub for some combat tricks as well and as a unit. And then lastly, oh, I didn't see Cloth Armor. I'm actually a big fan of Cloth Armor. It's essentially a pay 1, give a unit +2 on defense, which is great. So that being said, I've got 25 cards. This is one of those instances where I don't think I'll go over 25 because I don't really see a need to. None of these cards are calling out to me as incredible, and I don't want to dilute my deck pool. But now that we're at battlefields, you actually don't need to run the battlefields that you have. If you want, you can just run a blank battlefield. So I'll look at these real quick. Before looking in, I'm going to look at my breakdown. 10 spells. So what is that? 20 out of 50. 40% of my deck is spells. Do I really want to do something like Raven Bloom where I reveal the top card if it's a spell draw? That might help my opponents more than me. And then you have something like Rockfall where units can't be played here. You've got Sunken Temple for draw. You got Forge of the Fluff. You can attach an equipment. How much equipment do I have? 4. Because I don't love this and I don't have something that clearly benefits me going first, there's probably a good chance I run 3 blank battlefields and I just play what the opponent has. I added that one in. Veiled Tempo. When you conquer, you may ready a friendly gear. If it's an equipment, you may detach it. Don't love that. So I'd probably run 2 blanks and then maybe a Raven Bloom if I was going first. And then that would be my deck. So that being said, that is how you can practice and get ready for the upcoming pre-Rift events starting next week on Friday. Absolutely ecstatic for those. Big shout out to Rifty for developing such a cool application. Again, it's rifty.app. It lets you refresh and run this again and again and again. It also has the element of, hey, did I draw an incredible card? Getting Sever's Riposte is awesome. So I love the element of, what do you draw? That's one of the excitements for me with a sealed event anyways. And if you ever want to, you could go to TCG Arena and you could practice with whatever deck you built against someone else too, just to get those reps in. So that being said, good luck everyone, and I hope everyone has a great pre-Rift event.